Chapter 1152. Inside the woodshed. Yi sat on the bed and looked at the clothes on the table. These clothes were sent over by Gong Yu. When the time comes, I will be able to mix into the group of palace maids and serve food and wine. When that time comes, it will be my chance. I will not bear this crime. Even if I die, I will clear my name. Yi slowly laid down, took out a small mirror, and lightly stroked it. Right now, Ye won't use this to talk to me anymore. In his heart, does he just not trust me? Soon after, I took out that unfinished lollipop, took a look at it and put it back. Tomorrow, I am not a spy. Early morning. In the snowy northern Liangland, only Wushu Empire's sky was filled with warm sunlight. On this day, the sunlight was bright and beautiful, and all of the residents had a festive atmosphere. Most of the people even wore red clothes and celebrated this moment together. This was the grandest banquet that Wushu Empire had ever held since the founding of the empire. Most of the powers in the north had even gathered here, allowing everyone to see the weight of Wushu Empire. After all, people would only come if they gave them face. This Wushu Empire is truly extraordinary. 3 absolute palaces, sure, you said softly. That's right, a few months ago, we were still standing outside the city and almost died. The one who spoke was Broken Moon Valley's Xiang Liren. He was also one of the 3 survivors, and even now, he was still trembling with fear. Fan Jin stood at the side and sighed in his heart. If I wasn't smart that day, I probably wouldn't even be standing here. It is my honor to be invited here. Fan Jin said softly. Today will be one of the most unforgettable days of my life. The most unforgettable day would definitely be that day. It shocked me to the point that I was dispirited for a few days and had nightmares. The scene of me trembling while standing outside the city was still fresh in my memory. Supreme Fan Jin. A voice rang out behind Fan Jin. Fan Jin turned around and called out softly, "So it's Violent Wind Sect's Jiuming, long time no see." Violent Wind Sect was naturally a power from the ancient land, and they came here to join in the fun. This Jiuming had the appearance of a young man and seemed a bit flamboyant, which could be seen from his luxurious clothes. It was as if he was living in the countryside, making everyone worship him, but this Jiuming didn't have that kind of feeling. He didn't have that kind of feeling of being high and mighty. This Wushu Empire's people don't reveal any shock or fear when they look at me, as if they were looking at an ordinary person. He was too bold. Jiu Yang looked at Xiang Liren and Shi Yu, who were at the side. He did not care about them at all. Small sects like these could be dealt with a wave of his hand. On the other hand, he could not afford to offend Fan Jin. Fan Jin was only afraid of Wushu Empire. As for this 9 sons, he wasn't afraid at all. After all, he was someone who had half a foot in the honorable realm. Supreme Fan Jin, I feel that this voidless empire is exaggerating. Jiu Yang said calmly. It wouldn't be too much to address Fan Jin as a supreme. Fan Jin snorted coldly in his heart. He had the same feeling when he came here before. He had thought that this Wushu Empire was just a tiger on the outside. But who would have thought that their inner heart was even more terrifying than an evil dragon? In response to 9 sons' mockery, Fan Jin said indifferently, "Oh, you will know when the time comes." Shi Yu and Xiang Liren didn't say anything. If they had spoken nicely, they might have warned him, but since he was acting like a boss, they would have made him suffer. At that time, you will know how precious life is. Supreme Fan Jin, 9 sons sect leader. Right at this moment, another man walked over with a gentle smile on his face, appearing very approachable. This was the Twin Dragons Academy's headmaster, Baido. Sect leader Baido. Fan Jin called out softly. Shi Yu and Xiang Liren also called out. Baido, how do you feel about this place? Jiu Yang laughed softly with a mocking tone. Baidu swept his gaze across the surroundings and said with a smile, "This voidless empire is the most prosperous one I have ever seen. It is comparable to the Bright Mist communal country in the south. The Bright Mist communal country belongs to the deity institution. What does this voidless empire have?" Jiu Yang snorted softly. Actually, his heart was filled with jealousy. This voidless empire was indeed prosperous and orderly. Compared to his own territory, his territory was like a bandit's nest. Baidu didn't argue. Although it is a little prosperous, the guards and whatnot here are still lacking. Hearing Baidu's words, the three of them laughed in their hearts. To actually say that this place lacks battle prowess. Back then, the two of you weren't there. If you were, you would know what battle prowess is. You would be so scared that you would pee your pants. Baidu continued to speak. In this voidless empire, a mere prince is getting married, yet he actually called out so many people. It's truly a huge effort. If it wasn't for the fact that I had nothing better to do, I wouldn't have bothered to come over. Jiu Yang snorted coldly. Fan Jin originally wanted to remind them, but he decided not to. If the two of you want to court death, no one would blame you. I heard that Yuan Yang Manor attacked Voidless Empire. Where did all these people go? This is truly strange. Jiu Yang asked curiously. Baidu opened his folding fan and said indifferently, "Who knows? Could it be that they were annihilated by this voidless empire?" Back then, there were only 3 people left alive. Lai Gu had originally wanted these 3 people to spread the news. In the end, these 3 people didn't even dare to mention it. They were so scared that they peed their pants. Maybe they went to another place to mingle around, who knows? Jiu Yang spread out his hands. It was good for them to change locations, lest they meet on the battlefield in the future. At this moment, Fan Jin said indifferently, "It is about time, we can enter the palace now." With Fan Jin as the leader, everyone nodded their heads. Other than these people, there were also some people from other empires who came, just that they didn't participate in their conversation. The wedding ceremony was naturally held outside of the palace, in the open. The wedding ceremony was similar to that day in the gods' realm, just that the venue and atmosphere were a bit more majestic, and there were all black armored warriors guarding the wedding ceremony. A red carpet extended from the palace entrance all the way to the main hall, and on both sides of the red carpet, there were warriors dressed in red armor. At the palace entrance, Zishan and Yu Hua were both counting the number of people, making sure that no one sneaked into the palace. The main thing was to check if there was anyone who came to cause trouble. Because His Honor had specially instructed them to not let down their guard. The women from Voidless Empire are quite good-looking. Jiu Yang looked at Zishan and Yu Hua and said softly. However, no matter how softly Jiu Yang spoke, Zishan and Yu Hua were still able to hear what he said. Immediately, they looked towards Jiu Yang. Originally, Jiu Yang wanted to continue teasing Jiu Yang, but subconsciously, he was telling himself that it was better for him to remain quiet. Fan Jin, Shiyu, and Xiang Liren had seen Yu Hua before, and she was standing on top of the city gate tower. This woman. I can't afford to offend her. Yi Hua hurriedly lowered his head and walked into the palace. Baidu, who was at the side, saw Fan Jin lowering his head. Could it be that he dropped something? I hurriedly lowered my head and looked at it. Baidu lowering his head had saved my life. End of chapter. Chapter 1153. The guests entered the hall one after another, and the first thing they saw were 2 rows of red-armored warriors. The flags of the Voidless Empire were raised in their hands, and they were crossed together, not moving at all, giving off a feeling of iron and blood. They sure are putting on a show. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that I had entered some big event, Jiu Yang said calmly, a look of disdain in his eyes. However, Fan Jin did not dare to say anything. All he wanted to do today was to witness a grand spectacle. Perhaps it would be helpful to his cultivation base. Baidu didn't say anything. Actually, he couldn't be bothered to say anything. He felt that there was no need to. Since he had chosen to come here, there was no need to waste his breath. 9 Suns was here to seek excitement. On the long red carpet, there were 2 seats for the guests. There were names and numbers on them. You just had to follow the number on the invitation and take your seat. It was very convenient. Everyone gradually took their seats. At this time, the palace maids slowly walked in with wine. Amongst the palace maids, Yi was also amongst them, and she was currently holding onto a cup of wine. No one discovered Yi's existence, but Yi was determined to die today. Yo, there are so many beauties here. Nine Yang looked at Yi, who was leaning forward slightly, and was about to reach out and touch her. Sensing his intentions, Yi quickly retracted her hand. Hee hee. Jiu Yang laughed dryly, with a peculiar look in his eyes. If he went to those empires, he could have any woman he wanted. Those emperors would respectfully send their women to his room. Even those women had looks of pleading on their faces. To be able to serve me, the 9 Suns, is the good fortune you women have accumulated in your previous lives. Fan Jin was seated at the side and naturally saw Jiu Yang's actions. He could not help but say, "Sect leader Jiu Yang, you have to pay attention to your image. There are quite a lot of people here." Indeed, there were quite a lot of them. If it wasn't the emperor, then it was the boss. There were hundreds of them. Jiu Yang squeezed out a smile and said, "Supreme Fan Jin is right." With that, he fell silent. At this time, a figure slowly walked out of the palace, wearing a festive red robe. This was the Blood Demon, the master of ceremonies today. Although the Blood Demon had lost all of his strength, his aura was still there. Under such a grand occasion, he did not have any stage fright at all. He seemed very at ease. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome everyone who has come to attend His Highness' wedding today. It is a joy to have friends coming from afar. Blood Demon's words were light and powerful, but his last words carried a deep threat. Everyone present was smart and understood this principle. Those who came with good intentions would get good food and good wine. If they came with bad intentions, then don't blame them. What awaited them was only deep despair. This kind of despair would make you wish you were dead. Fan Jin was very knowledgeable and immediately applauded. As soon as Fan Jin clapped, everyone else followed suit. It was a very lively scene. Everyone has come from afar. His Majesty has prepared some small programs for all of you to enjoy. Blood Devil waved his hand and then retreated. The people sitting below were very curious. The Emperor hadn't arrived yet, but the entertainment program had already begun. How strange. However, just as everyone was feeling puzzled, a strange aura came from the sky. Everyone looked up at the sky. A black cloud slowly floated over from afar. When Fan Jin saw the black cloud, his expression froze. This is... Baidu's eyes glazed over in disbelief. Black rainbow cloud. Why would this thing appear here? Even Jiu Yang was stupefied. Sure, you showed that she was new and asked curiously, "What is this black rainbow cloud?" Xiang Liren, who was at the side, said faintly, "Black rainbow cloud, it is actually not a cloud. It is a type of rare prehistoric ferocious beast that looks like a cloud. According to legends, as long as one is enveloped by the black rainbow cloud, any living being will become a part of it. And the bigger the black rainbow cloud, the stronger it is. Even an overlord would be finished. Then, look at the size of this black rainbow cloud." Sure, you was a bit stupefied. This black rainbow cloud is about to cover the entire sky. This is too terrifying. Right now, Jiu Yang was already so shocked that he couldn't speak. After all, the black rainbow cloud had only appeared in books and had never appeared before. I didn't expect to actually see it today. However, here came the problem. This black rainbow cloud appeared. What is it for? What is it here for? Could it be that it is here to devour me? Everyone seemed to have thought of this and started to become nervous. However, Blood Demon's voice sounded, "Everyone, don't panic, this is just an entertainment program." Entertainment program? Who the hell would use a black rainbow cloud to liven things up? Aren't they crazy? This is a black rainbow cloud, not some random cat or dog that can kill people with a single word of disagreement. As the black rainbow cloud gradually floated over, everyone felt a sense of pressure. Gradually, the black rainbow cloud stopped and covered the entire sky of Wushu Empire. The originally sunny weather immediately turned gloomy. This caused the joyous wedding to feel a bit heavy. Even the people in the city were puzzled. Why did the black rainbow cloud cover up the sunlight? This isn't right. Just as everyone was puzzled, a crack could be seen appearing on the black rainbow cloud. Rays of sunlight could be seen passing through the crack and shining onto the entire Wushu Empire. This was a visual touch. Those rays of sunlight seemed to symbolize hope, and when the sunlight shone onto the ground, everyone felt breathtaking. It was too beautiful, causing people to be unable to shift their eyes away from it. The people in the city were also stupefied by this beautiful scene. Is this what hope is? It's so magnificent. A multicolored rainbow light suddenly appeared and spanned across the entire Wushu Empire. That beautiful rainbow light seemed to have formed a bridge. Is this another bridge of hope? It's so beautiful. It's too beautiful. It's too breathtaking. Everyone had never seen such a spectacle before, and today, their horizons have truly been broadened. That black rainbow cloud up there is not something that just anyone can invite, and right now, it is actually able to perform for you. This will definitely be recorded in the history books. Ong! A loud and clear roar rang out from afar. This roar brought along a strong pressure, and this pressure was comparable to that of the black rainbow cloud. Fan Jin suddenly stood up and said blankly, "This is the legendary red-feathered white tiger." What? This is a red-feathered white tiger. Jiu Yang cried out in surprise, and his gaze was filled with deep fear. Sure, you asked curiously, what is a red-feathered white tiger? Fan Jin said gravely, if there is something above a dragon, then it would be a red-feathered white tiger. Above a dragon? Sure, you revealed a look of astonishment. There is something above a dragon. However, sure, you immediately saw it. Sure, you suddenly stood up. This is really a dragon, but that is a tiger's head in a dragon's body, and it even has a pair of pure white wings. When those wings were spread out, they were actually as wide as the black rainbow cloud. Just how huge are those wings? Ong! The red-feathered white tiger that was at the front let out a roar, and the entire heaven and earth trembled. End of this chapter. Chapter 1154. When the people of the entire Voidless Empire saw this scene, their brains were all shocked. This was 2F** King terrifying, wasn't it? I have never seen such a huge creature before. Not only ordinary people, even Fan Jin had only seen it in a book, and it was only a few words about it. Jiu Yang swallowed his saliva, and his scalp went numb. Just what kind of empire is this? Just a black rainbow cloud is already enough to shock everyone. I didn't expect that red-winged white tigers would come again. An even more terrifying existence. And there are 3 of them. My God! Right at this moment, the 3 red-winged white tigers suddenly turned into dots of starlight and attached themselves to the layer of clouds. This made everyone feel as if they were looking at the stars in the night sky. So beautiful, so beautiful. To ordinary people, this is beautiful, but to those with strength, this is not beautiful. This is completely a type of panic. To actually be able to cause the red-winged white tigers to disintegrate. How is this possible? The powerful and terrifying ancient godly beast actually did this. This is unimaginable. I am definitely dreaming. Jiu Yang muttered. Baidu rubbed his eyes, seemingly unwilling to believe what was happening in front of him. An empire. To actually be able to bring out such a godly beast. This was something that could not possibly exist. Shi Yu and Xiang Liren finally knew that what they saw that day was just the tip of the iceberg. Perhaps, what they saw right now is just the tip of the iceberg. Fan Jin slowly sat down, his breathing a bit hurried. I didn't come here for nothing today. Although I only saw 2 rare beasts, it was a great help to my realm, and my horizons have been broadened by a lot. Yi, who was standing among the palace maids, was also incomparably shocked. Although she did not know what it was, the scene in front of her had already deeply attracted her. I feel that I am very small standing here, and I still have to explain myself face to face later on. Will these people listen to my explanation? I can't care so much anymore. Today is a rare opportunity. If I were to miss it, I would have to carry this infamy for my entire life. If I were to end it just like this, that would not be Yi Hua's style. Quickly look, what is that? Where? Above the rainbow light. Everyone stood up once again and looked at the end of the rainbow light. Some figures appeared, but these figures were not humans, and they were walking with 2 legs. As these things approached, everyone was puzzled. There were more than 100 people in the group, but they didn't look like humans. Because their heads grew on their chests, and they only had 2 legs, but no hands. It was very strange. The newbie Shi Yu asked curiously again, what species is this? I've never seen it before. Xiang Liren shook his head, indicating that he didn't understand either. Baidu asked curiously, Supreme Fan Jin, do you recognize these? Fan Jin considered himself to be knowledgeable, but when he saw these things, he was still dumbfounded. Jiu Yang, on the other hand, revealed an extremely terrified expression. His entire body was trembling as if he had seen a ghost. Sect leader 9 Sons, do you recognize these species? Baidu could tell from 9 Sons' expression that he recognized them. Tiny beads of sweat appeared on Jiu Yang's forehead as he said in a fearful tone, I once heard my great master mention a legend. What legend? Fan Jin asked curiously. A very, very long time ago, there was a group of strange races. They were invincible, and wherever they went, nothing grew. Their heads grew on their chests, and they didn't have hands, but they had 2 legs. They had a powerful and enviable talent, immortality. Xiang Liren asked curiously, does this immortality refer to life or? They couldn't be killed. Jiu Yang added. Shi Yu was curious, since they couldn't be killed, why did this group of people disappear? I don't know. In the past, I thought my great master said it was just for fun, but today, I realized that it was true. These people were called black giants. Killing a supreme being was like killing an ant. Jiu Yang said blankly, suddenly feeling afraid. He had started to mock this place the moment he arrived at Wushu Empire. If those mocking words were known by others, wouldn't he be finished? Thinking of this, Jiu Yang broke out in cold sweat. He wasn't even a supreme being, and even if he was, he would be an existence that would tremble in fear just by sitting here. Over 100 black giants walked to the center of the rainbow and stopped, and something that made everyone confused happened. The black giants could be seen leaning backward slightly, and multicolored things suddenly shot out from their mouths. Bu, bang, bang, bang. These multicolored things were just like fireworks, and they blossomed beneath the clouds. It was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. These are really artificial fireworks, and they look just like bubbles. However, what everyone didn't know was that the things that the black giants spat out actually had very great destructive power. It was just that, for the sake of the show this time, the black giants' weapons were precisely their mouths. As long as they were to shoot at the same time, the defenseless Wushu Empire would be instantly destroyed. Brilliant fireworks blossomed beneath the black rainbow clouds. All of the girls were stupefied by this scene. If someone were to propose to them right now, they would definitely agree to it. This is too romantic. However, Fan Jin and the others finally knew. This was the effect of turning day into night. Let the black rainbow clouds come over and act as the night. Let the red-winged white tiger come over and act as the stars. Then, let the black giants that were terror-stricken come over and use their mouths to shoot fireworks. For these three formidable characters to gather together, just for this, just how much manpower and material resources were needed to accomplish this. These things were all found by Brett. As for how he found out about it, Yihua wouldn't ask about it. Yihua was only looking at the final result of the show. At the very least, up until now, he was rather satisfied. Brett was still very meticulous this time. Who was in the group looked at the magnificent fireworks and felt that it was so beautiful, so beautiful. I really want to engrave this moment deep into my mind. Furthermore, it would be great if Yi was by my side. Such a beautiful scenery, if I were to lie in Yi's embrace, how romantic would that be? I hope that I will have this chance in the future, but the prerequisite is that I have to be able to explain everything clearly today. The fireworks lasted for 10 minutes, and the black giants slowly left. As for where they went, no one knew, and no one dared to go and provoke them. Suddenly, a hollow yet sweet-sounding bell rang out, and it immediately made everyone feel relaxed and happy. Just by hearing the bell, one could tell that it was not an ordinary item. That is. Baido cried out in surprise when he saw the item that was walking over. Fan Jin's eyeballs were about to pop out. I am afraid that everyone knows about this thing, because it is written in the books. However, this thing is already extinct, and it can even be said that it no longer exists. However, this thing actually appeared today. The news sure you didn't ask anymore, because she knew about this thing. It is called Heavy Thunder. End of this chapter. Chapter 1155. This was a type of prehistoric divine beast that looked extremely similar to a stag. The only difference was the pair of horns. This was no longer a horn, but a type of medicine that could make people immortal. In order to achieve immortality, one had to become a supreme being. However, how many people were stuck at this stage and eventually died of old age? However, just a little powder from the pair of horns of Heavy Thunder could make people immortal. Although this fellow's attacks weren't that great, his horns were much more absorptive than the other three. After all, there was nothing more important than immortality. As long as he had enough time, it wasn't impossible for him to reach the supreme level. He was just afraid that he wouldn't be able to reach it even if he used up all the time. Fan Jin, for example. Although he was young, it was only an illusion created by magic. He wasn't really young. Everyone was staring at Heavy Thunder, wishing they could dig out its horn and eat it. That way, he would be able to obtain immortality and eternal youth. But everyone was guessing in their hearts. Just how much foundation did this Wushu Empire have? Was there anything even more terrifying? With these things, he could sweep across the entire Kangluo continent. At this moment, Ren Yao, who was standing far away, was also shocked when she saw these monsters. Just who is this His Honor? With such great power, he was able to take out these rare treasures. The subordinates were already used to this kind of pretentiousness. It was just that they would change it every time. Today, it was also a visual enjoyment. It was not completely pretentiousness, but it also seemed to have a little bit of life philosophy. It seems like His Honor has also comprehended a bit of the great Tao. Zhongting gradually walked to the center. The bell on his ear stopped ringing. Everyone looked at Zhongting. What was he going to do? However, the Heavy Thunder hummed softly as if it was singing. Everyone's scalp went numb. They actually invited Zhongting to sing. He had seen amazing people, but he had never seen someone this amazing. Invincible. He was truly invincible. It was a wedding song, but most people couldn't tell what it was. Gradually, a beam of light suddenly expanded, illuminating the entire main seat. 5 figures appeared at the top of the black cloud. Everyone couldn't help but rub their eyes. Who were these people? It seemed so sacred and inviolable. Heavy Thunder stopped speaking and looked at the noble head below the figure. Even the black giant was the same. Everyone felt that, could this be the Emperor of Voidless Empire? At this moment, Fan Jin was clearly very excited. He was finally going to see the Emperor of Voidless Empire. He was finally going to see it. This would be the most precious moment of his life. Fan Jin was not the only one who thought this way. Everyone else felt the same way. Chapter 1156. Thank you, Your Majesty. Everyone shouted out once again, not daring to be the slightest bit impudent. They were even thinking in their hearts, what kind of treasure did the Emperor give them? It is definitely not a small thing, it is definitely a good thing. Yihua slowly sat down and signaled for everyone to continue. Blood Demon took a step forward and shouted, the auspicious time has arrived, let the wedding ceremony begin. Everyone was very curious, just what kind of person is the Emperor's younger brother, and of course, they were also very curious what the bride looked like. Roar! A terrifying dragon roar suddenly resounded throughout the ground, causing everyone's scalp to go numb. Perhaps it was because they had just seen the red-winged white tiger, but when they looked at the dragon again, it seemed like the quality of the dragon had dropped a bit. However, everyone discovered that they were wrong. They were extremely wrong. Because this was a carriage being pulled by 9 dragons. 9 enormous dragons were pulling a wedding carriage, and the carriage was flying over from afar. Everyone in Wushu Empire saw it. Jiu Yang and Bai Dou were already numb to it. Too many things had happened today, and even their eyesight had been broadened. Compared to this place, the place that I came from is simply a rubbish dump. 9 enormous dragons of different colors soared in the sky, and within the wedding carriage was naturally Yi Juetian and Gong Yu. Right now, Gong Yu's head was covered with a red veil, and her hands were tightly clasped together, appearing to be very nervous. However, within this nervousness, there was also excitement. Today, I finally got what I wanted. I married the man that I liked, although the process was a bit bumpy, the ending was still considered good. There was only one last segment left. Today, Yi was definitely going to die. It was not a good sign for someone to die in my own wedding ceremony, but in order to get rid of this scourge, I can only do this. Let Yi Juetian completely give up on this idea. Yi Juetian, who was sitting at the side, felt very uncomfortable. I wonder how Yi is right now. She should be feeling very bad, right? In the future, I will definitely help you clear your name. I believe that you are not a spy. Yi also saw dragons. These were creatures that ordinary people would never be able to see in their entire lives. Meanwhile, Yi and Gong Yu were sitting in the carriage at the back, being pulled by 9 divine dragons. What a great honor! If I am sitting in the carriage, how blissful would that be? However, these are all just my own wishful thinking. The 9 enormous dragons slowly landed on the red carpet, and the wedding carriage's door just so happened to be facing the red carpet. At this time, the groomsmen and bridesmaids appeared. The bridesmaids were Sun Fang and Tang Wei. Tang Wei felt that since Uncle Wei was not around, she should also do something. Zhu Tian personally opened the door, and Yi Juetian's figure appeared. However, when Yi Juetian appeared, everyone's eyes were filled with surprise. This person looks exactly the same as the Emperor, as expected of my biological brother. As Gong Yu was wearing a red veil, everyone couldn't see her appearance clearly. However, from that arrogant body shape, it could be seen that she should be a beauty. In any case, it definitely won't be an ugly girl. Welcome the bride and groom. Play the music. Blood Devil shouted in a joyous tone. Looking at her youngest son getting married, Lu Jing's face was filled with satisfaction. Yi Hua was the same as well. He had finally managed to hold his younger brother's wedding. Dong 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 dong, dong 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 dong. A sweet-sounding voice resounded throughout the entire voidless empire as everyone offered their blessings. The two newcomers walked towards the main seat and prepared to greet. When he walked up the steps, the female officer below waved, indicating that the wine could be served. Just now, the drinks were almost finished. I will definitely have to propose a toast later on. Right now, Yi was holding onto the wine pot, and her breathing was a bit hurried, very nervous, very hesitant. However, when he saw Ye walking up the stairs, his rapid breathing gradually calmed down. Today, I must definitely explain everything clearly and say it in front of everyone. The palace maid slowly entered the venue and added more wine to the table. Jiu Yang looked at Yi, who was in front of him once again. Yi is very beautiful, but right now, he doesn't dare to tease her at all. His sitting posture is just like a child. He was afraid that his teacher would see him. Right now, Qian Yuqing's gaze was filled with astonishment. Because she had been worried about Yi, she specially observed Yi. Jiu Yang's position was closer to the front, thus Qian Yuqing saw Yi with a single glance. Qian Yuqing was startled by Yi's action. What are you doing? Don't mess around. If you mess around today, even the Heavenly King won't be able to save you. Yi, please don't do anything stupid. There will still be chances in the future, however, to Yi, today is a chance. If she misses today, there won't be any more chances in the future. Qingye saw that Qian Yuqing's expression was a bit bad, so she followed Qian Yuqing's gaze and looked over. Upon discovering Yi, Qingye was startled. Why is she here? Qingye hurriedly pulled Dong Huang Baiji, who was beside her, and hinted. Dong Huang Baiji similarly discovered Yi, and her expression sunk. For Yi to appear here today, could it be because of something else? It is definitely because of Yi Juetian's wedding. Could it be that Yi is here to stop the wedding? My God! This foolish woman is being muddle-headed again. If you do this, you will have wasted little Tian's painstaking efforts. Why are you so immature? However, to Yi, this is not doing a foolish thing, this is doing the right thing. Different positions, different ways of thinking would naturally be different. Perhaps, if Qingye and the others were to look at the problem from Yi's point of view, they wouldn't feel that what Yi is doing is foolish, but rather, what Yi is doing is a type of courage. She dares to face the tyrant Yi Hua. Gong Yu, who was walking on the stairs, was very nervous. If Yi were to give up today, my future days will definitely not be easy. However, I have already walked till now. Why haven't I heard Yi's voice yet? Foolish woman. Hurry up and shout, defend yourself. Yi Juetian still didn't know that Yi was standing not far away from him, and on his face, a blissful smile appeared. Yi had already changed the wine pot, and seemed to be preparing to return with the palace maids. However, when all of the palace maids returned, Yi was still standing in front of Jiu Yang without moving. Jiu Yang was a bit stupefied right now. Big sister, don't mess around, this is not a joke. If you are joking, I will die. Big sister, I beg you, quickly leave. I will apologize for my actions just now, okay? Please don't report me, I am in the wrong. Fan Jin also discovered that this palace maid is very strange. Her expression is one of struggle. Could it be that she is preparing to report Jiu Yang's actions just now? Baido also discovered that and sat at the side, not uttering a word. I mustn't invite trouble onto myself. Shi Yu and Xiang Liren sneered in their hearts. Now you know fear, right? Why didn't you think when you were preparing to bully others just now? Yi's expression really frightened Jiu Yang badly. Right now, the famous Jiu Yang had the urge to pee in his pants. If this palace maid were to report me, I am finished. I am dead for sure. I will definitely have to feed it to the dragons. Big sister, I will kneel down for you, okay? Don't mess around. Jiu Yang said in a low voice. His lips were trembling, and his heart was about to jump out. However, Yi's face was expressionless as she slowly walked to the center position and looked at the tall stairs, as well as those people on top of the stairs. End of this chapter. Chapter 1157. Right now, Jiu Yang's mind was a bit dizzy. What are you doing? Just how big of a matter is this? I didn't even touch your hand, and you want to complain about me? Other people always say that women are stingy. I didn't believe it in the past, but today, I have finally seen it for myself. If you complain about me in this kind of situation, you will also die, and you still want to drag me to die with you. Are you crazy? With a thud, Yi directly knelt on the ground. Along with Yi kneeling down, Jiu Yang fainted, thinking to himself that I am going to die today. It's just a small matter. Do you really have to kill me? This was too careless. However, everyone looked at Yi's actions in confusion. What was this palace maid doing? Why did he suddenly kneel down? The other palace maids were also shocked. What was going on? The female official fainted from fright. She had instructed her not to make any mistakes today, but it still happened. When Qian Yuqing saw Yi kneeling down, her expression immediately became heavy. It's over, it's really over. Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi were the same. Yi Hua placed a lot of importance on today's event, and yet, Yi, you actually chose to create trouble today. Even we don't dare to plead for you. Qin Yutong didn't see it before, but now that she saw it, she was also shocked by Yi's actions. Brother-in-law had been preparing for this day for the past few days, and I even felt that someone would come and make trouble for me today. Alright, now that everything is alright, you really came to create trouble. My God, why are you so stupid? When Lu Jing saw Yi kneeling on the ground, the smile on her face gradually disappeared. Her gaze turned solemn. However, Yi Hua's line of sight was blocked by the two newbies. Thus, he was unable to see what was going on. However, he was able to hear the sounds of discussions. Right at this moment, Gong Yu also heard the subtle sounds of discussion that came from behind her, and she became happy in her heart. Could it be that Yi has made a move? Yi Juetian, who was beside him, also heard it, and he turned his head around to look at it with a puzzled expression. He immediately saw the palace maid kneeling in the middle. Yi Juetian's gaze gradually became astonished, and even became lifeless. Yi was actually kneeling here. Yi Juetian felt as if he had been struck by a bolt from the blue. Last night, I did think that Yi would come back, but that was all just my imagination running wild. Never in a million years would he have thought that the thing he feared the most would appear just like that. Yi really came. Gong Yu felt that Yi Juetian, who was beside her, had stopped. Then, without thinking too much, it was definitely Yi. This foolish woman still hasn't given up. I, Gong Yu, can't help but admire your courage. Making Big Brother Emperor look bad in front of so many people, if it was me, I definitely wouldn't have the guts. Yi Hua felt that the atmosphere wasn't right. Thus, he shifted his gaze slightly and immediately saw Yi who was kneeling on the ground. His originally joyous face suddenly became incomparably gloomy. I have thought of all kinds of troublemaking scenarios. He had only forgotten about Yi. Never would I have expected this. She was the one who dared to cause trouble. Choosing such a special day to make me look bad. He was really scheming. Yi Juetian came back to his senses and immediately shouted, "Men! Drag her out!" This was also the only way to save Yi. Silly woman, you can't act recklessly today, you will die. A few guards immediately walked towards Yi. However, Yi Hua shouted out gravely, "Wait." When Yi Juetian heard what his big brother said, he immediately felt that something was amiss. it wasn't only Yi Juetian who felt that way, Qinya and the others felt that way too. It's over, Yi angered Yi Hua. When Gong Yu heard her big brother telling her to wait, she felt great in her heart. Yi, if you don't die today, Ju Tian will be yours. I, Gong Yu, will definitely do what I say. The people below were already discussing it. Those who were seated here were all big shots. They felt that this matter wasn't that simple. To dare to cause trouble at such an important moment, this palace maid's guts wasn't just ordinary. Could it be that this palace maid has gone mad? Sure, you said in a low voice. Xiang Liren nodded his head. That's right, we still have to listen to what this palace maid has to say. If it's something bad, I'm afraid. Fan Jin said gravely, seems like today isn't that simple. Jiu Yang had already fainted from fright. His face was pale and devoid of any color. If it was a normal situation, this kind of matter would definitely be dealt with at a later time and brought Yi away first. However, was Yi Hua that kind of person? The other party had already provoked him to his face. If I were to send someone to bring Yi away, tomorrow, news of my Wushu Empire doing something shameful would spread out. The losses outweighed the gains. At this moment, Lu Jing said in a low voice, Yi Hua, let's deal with this matter at a later time. Yi Juetian must have definitely pleaded for his mother, and he hurriedly said, Big brother, if we deal with this matter at a later time, I'm afraid that Wushu Empire's reputation will be affected. Qinya said in a low voice, Yi Hua, the overall situation is more important. However, not only did Yi Hua's anger not quelled, he instead became angrier and angrier. I, the Supreme Overlord, am going to see her today. What is she doing? To actually choose to slap my face in public. Such guts. After so many years, you are the first ordinary person who dares to do such a thing. And it's even a woman. I am innocent. Yi said in a low voice. Following Yi's words, the sounds of discussion became even louder. What does this palace maid mean? Why is she saying that she is innocent? Just what is such a powerful empire hiding? Is this a loss of morals, or is this a kidnapping by the empire? Right now, everyone's gossipy heart was burning and boiling. They wished that they could immediately know the ins and outs of the matter. When Yi Juetian heard Yi's words, his mind became a bit stupefied. What does Yi mean by this? Could it be that she is still trying to explain for my mother? After all, no one told Yi about the matter of the spy. I am not a spy. Yi explained in a low voice once again. However, this tone of hers made her seem so weak and helpless. However, the word spy caused a huge uproar. A spy actually appeared in such a powerful and prosperous Wushu empire. As expected, even powerful empires would have spies appearing. Furthermore, this spy even explained in front of everyone, just what exactly is going on. Yi Hua's expression sunk. How did she know? Who told her about it? Yi Hua himself wasn't sure either. In actuality, in Yi Hua's heart, it wasn't important who told him about it. You made me lose a lot of face today. You actually want to explain. Then, I shall fulfill your wish. You said that you are not a spy. Do you have any evidence? Yi Hua asked coldly. If you are unable to give me a reason today, I will personally kill you. Yi, who was kneeling on the ground, slowly raised her head. Your Majesty, please believe me, I am not a spy. I will not harm everyone. I am not that kind of person. Seems like you don't have any evidence. However, I do. Yi Hua immediately waved his hand, and the conversation between Yi Hua and Huang Feidi instantly appeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 1158. Everyone was watching, and everyone was listening. When Yi heard and saw it, she was in disbelief. She didn't even know that man. Why did this man want to frame her? Your Majesty, I am being wrongly accused. I don't even know this man at all. Yi finally knew why Ye would ignore me, because all of them had misunderstood me. However, everyone didn't expect that this woman was actually sent by someone else to harm the Empress Dowager. My God, to actually be able to live until now after plotting against the Empress Dowager. Furthermore, looking at the Emperor's attitude, it seems like he already knew about it, but he didn't kill him. The various emperors couldn't help but think that if it were them, they would have already killed him. Yi Hua said coldly, "You keep on saying that you are innocent, but where is the evidence? Isn't everything you're doing destroying this emperor's family?" Yi Juetian. Don't you think so? Right now, Yi Hua was extremely furious. I, the Supreme Overlord, had already let her off, and didn't directly kill her. Today is such a big day, and yet, she actually appeared and said such a thing. Regardless of whether you were framed or not, you wasted all the medicine. This is an iron-like fact. My mother doesn't have much time left. If it wasn't for me giving my little brother face, I would have already killed you over 100 times. Do you still think you can live until now? Yi Juetian didn't know how to answer this question. He only thought about how to protect Yi's life. How? How was he supposed to protect himself? Yi Yuanqing really wanted to say a few words, but looking at his big brother's gloomy face, if he said it now, it would be even worse. Yi Yuanqing wasn't the only one who was thinking this way. Qingya and the others didn't dare to anger Yi Hua right now, as doing so would only hasten Yi's death. Gong Yu, on the other hand, was very happy. Big Brother Emperor was already enraged. Today, Yi would definitely die. Lu Jing sighed helplessly. You silly child, why did you have to choose today? Aren't you just courting death? Everyone looked at Yi Juetian, and they seemed to have thought of something. It can't be that, the Emperor's blood brother likes this girl, right? Otherwise, how could this woman still be alive? Yi raised her head and looked at Yi Juetian. So, other people can choose not to believe in themselves, but Yi, you should believe in yourself. Really? Yi Juetian felt that, if I were to choose to believe Yi, wouldn't I end up angering Big Brother even more? If he really did that, he would definitely lose his big brother's face in front of everyone. At that time, it would be even more difficult to clean up the mess, and his big brother would be even more furious. However, if I don't believe in Yi will definitely feel very uncomfortable. Yi Juetian glanced at his elder brother with a pleading look in his eyes. Could he not kill Yi? Yi Hua didn't even take a look at it. Yi Juetian knitted his brows tightly. He turned around and shouted, since you don't have any evidence, then don't bother explaining anymore. Hearing Yi Juetian's words, Yi Hua felt slightly better. I didn't lose face for Big Brother in front of so many people. At least you're sensible. Yi Juetian thought to himself, I'm giving my big brother face, so my big brother should also give me face. However, when Yi heard Yi Juetian's words, her face instantly became pale and powerless. Why does everyone not believe in me? Even you, are the same as them. Yi couldn't help but think back to the scene where she met Yi Juetian for the first time. I believed in you, and I followed you. But, in the end, why can't I believe in you? Why would I harm others? Why don't you believe in me? Yi looked at Yi Juetian and asked. Without a doubt, this was telling everyone that she had a relationship with this prince. Everyone discussed in a low voice. Royal family gossip, even such an awesome royal family would have this kind of gossip, the plot of a prince falling in love with a palace maid, but in the end, marrying someone else. This is really too melodramatic. Tomorrow, the entire North will most probably spread about how powerful Wushu Empire is, and how there is a secret that no one knows about. Yi Juetian really hoped that Yi would stop asking about this. I am clearly saying this for Big Brother to hear, however, how would the sad Yi understand all these? Yi will believe whatever you say to her. Yi Juetian looked at the discussions that everyone was having, and thought to himself, I'm done for, Big Brother is a respectable person. Enough. You don't have to say any more, I will not believe in the words that you say. Yi Juetian endured the pain in his heart and shouted out. Looking at how much pain Yi was in, I really want to take her place and bear this sin. Hearing Yi Juetian's words, Yi's face became ashen. The discussions that were happening beside Yi's ears entered Yi's ears. This woman still wants to enter the royal family, she is truly shameless. That's right, to intentionally choose such a day to lay all her cards on the table, she is truly a scheming woman. If I was the emperor, I would have killed this kind of woman long ago. If you have the ability, then you are the emperor, all right? All sorts of malicious words caused Yi's head to feel a bit dizzy. Yi slowly raised her head and looked towards the blue sky. The sky above Wushu Empire was very beautiful, and when the gentle sunlight shone onto Yi's body, it felt very warm. However, Yi was not able to feel this warmth. On the contrary, it was bone-piercingly cold, so cold that it seemed as if it could even freeze one's heart. Yi Hua, today is little Tian's big day, let's not cause any deaths. Lu Jing said lightly at the side. It would be inauspicious if someone were to die during a wedding. Chapter 1159. However, the situation right now was different. Huang Feidi had died, and right now, there was no one to testify against him. How was it possible for Yi to wash away the injustice? However, right at this moment, Qian Yuqing's eyes lit up, and she suddenly thought of a good idea. Soul gem. The spirit gem was still in his hands. This should be the only thing that could prove Yi's innocence. Justice for Yi. Perhaps it was because they were in the same boat, Qian Yuqing said, Yihua, I have something that can prove whether Yi is a spy or not. Yihua looked towards Qian Yuqing. His meaning was very clear. Do you want to get involved in this matter as well? Yihua, this is the spirit gem from back then. That Huang Yun won't be able to withstand this. Let Yi give it a try. If she is a spy, then just kill her. If she isn't a spy, then husband, please deal with her leniently. Qian Yuqing said in a low voice. She did not let anyone else hear her, but Yi Juetian and Gong Yu, who were closer to her, heard her. Yi Juetian was very excited because he believed that Yi was not a spy. But Gong Yu was not happy. He knew that Yi wasn't a spy, but if Yi's name was cleared, this was not good for him. Should I say something now? Otherwise, I won't have the chance anymore. Gong Yu didn't dare to say it. If she stopped him now, she would become a suspect. Yihua looked at the spirit gem and slightly wrinkled his brows. His expression was very tense. Yihua, why don't you give it a try? At least there will be a result. Lu Jing spoke, and all of the daughters-in-law let out a breath of relief. Yihua said gravely, all right. Yi, this emperor will give you another chance. Hearing his big brother's words, Yi Juetian was very happy. Yi could finally clear her name. However, Yi who was kneeling on the ground didn't have any feelings at all, because Yi Juetian didn't believe in her. Right now, there was already no meaning in trying to explain anything to him. A man who didn't believe in me, and I even foolishly gave up everything for him, he was so stupid. Qian Yuqing took the heart gem and walked towards Yi. Everyone was able to admire the beauty of the Empress up close. She was so beautiful that it was suffocating. Qian Yuqing was the most beautiful woman in the gods' realm, and that was not just for show. Actually, Yi wasn't bad either. It was just that her aura wasn't there yet. Yi, take this. It can prove your innocence. Qian Yuqing helped Yi up and encouraged her. Everyone looked at the spirit gem in Qian Yuqing's hand and felt quite confused. They did not know what this spirit gem was used for. However, this mind gem was a lie detector. Yi looked at the bead in Qian Yuqing's hand. A small bead could make her innocent, but could it build trust again? Yi Juetian, I will never trust you again. I will never trust you again in this lifetime. How many years has it been? I, the Supreme Overlord, was actually played by someone. My intelligence was fiercely rubbed on the ground. In actuality, Lu Jing had always felt that Yi wasn't a spy, just that Yi was rather stupid. Right now, seeing that Yi was able to prove herself, Lu Jing felt at ease. Gong Yu's mood was very bad right now. I didn't expect that sister-in-law would have such a method to save Yi, this foolish woman. I will think of a way in the future. Let's settle this marriage first. At the very least, I will have a status, while you don't have a status. When everyone saw that Yi was able to prove her innocence, a smile appeared on their faces. It wasn't easy for this little palace maid. It wasn't known who started clapping, but everyone started clapping and cheering for Yi. As an ordinary palace maid, for Yi to be able to face such a powerful empire, even Fan Jin would feel ashamed of his own inferiority. Qian Yuqing stretched out her hand and wiped away the tears that were at the corner of Yi's eyes, then said tenderly, "All right, everything is fine now." Yi returned the spirit gem that was in her hand to Qian Yuqing, then said lightly, "Empress, thank you. It's good that you are fine now, go back and have a good rest later." "And I indeed need to have a good rest," Yi said lightly, but Qian Yuqing didn't understand the meaning behind Yi's words. End of this chapter. Chapter 1160. The rest that Yi was talking about was to rest for a long time, to rest forever. "I'm tired, I'm really tired." Qian Yuqing walked towards the stairs in satisfaction, but before she even took a few steps, Qian Yuqing heard Yi Juetian shouting out loudly, "Yi." However, everyone in the surroundings immediately stood up, and their gazes were filled with shock and puzzlement. Fan Jin didn't understand. Why did this palace maid want to do this? Didn't I already explain it clearly? Qian Yuqing turned her head around and looked towards Yi. She didn't know what happened, but Qingye and the others had clearly seen what happened just now, and they were all stupefied. Even Yihua had seen what happened just now, and his entire body felt unwell. If Yi's innocence just now was equivalent to slapping my face, then what Yi is doing right now is equivalent to mocking me. She doesn't need my forgiveness at all. This was the first time Yihua had seen such a woman, and he was clearly feeling very heavy. In fact, he was even pondering over what happened to Yi. Was I really wrong? She actually used her death to tell everyone that she doesn't need other people's pity. This ordinary woman. She actually defeated me. Yi Juetian directly rushed towards Yi. Gong Yu didn't stop him, because just now, Yi had already swallowed the poison that Gong Yu had given to her, and this poison was incurable. Gong Yu had originally kept it for herself, but after coming here, she discovered that she didn't need it at all. "Don't come over." Yi took a few steps back, then pointed at Yi Juetian and shouted out. Yi Juetian stopped his footsteps, and tears flowed down from his eyes. "Yi, why, didn't everything end?" "That's right, everything has ended, I'm tired. I don't want to continue living with you anymore." Yi revealed out a smile. How many days has it been? This was the most natural smile that Yi revealed out. This was a type of release, this was a type of relaxation. Right now, Yi's heart was very calm, and there wasn't a single trace of reluctance. Yi Juetian didn't understand why Yi would choose to end her own life. "We can still continue living, Yi. Can you believe in me?" Yi looked towards the blue sky once again and said lightly, "No, I won't believe in you anymore. Please let me go, Yi." "I won't, don't leave me." Yi Juetian shouted out. Why did this happen? Just what did I do wrong? The people around them seemed to be able to feel this desolation. This was a pair of lovers with a bitter fate. It was a touching scene. Qingye and Dong Huang Baizhi were both sobbing. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that Yi would be like this. Qing Yutong looked at Yi blankly, and tears slowly flowed down from her eyes. This silly girl, why is she so silly? Gong Yu was very happy. The matter is finally settled. Cracks appeared on Yi's body, giving off a white light. Yi could feel the peace before death. She no longer had to think about how he was doing. Has he eaten? Was he hungry? Did he rest well? Yi Juetian looked at Yi's face. Those cracks had already caused Yi's face to become blurry. However, Yi still had one last thing to say. If I could turn back time, I wouldn't go with you. Yi said softly, but her voice contained too much bitterness. Everyone could tell that this girl really did not have it easy. Yi slowly raised her head and took one last look at Wushu Empire's blue sky. It's really very blue, Yi. Yi Juetian immediately ran towards Yi and hugged onto Yi's body. However, Yi's body shattered into pieces within Yi Juetian's embrace. Just like how Yi Juetian's heart shattered into pieces, the sparkling and translucent pieces fell onto the ground, and Yi Juetian looked at the pieces on the ground stupidly. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Juetian slowly squatted down and touched the pieces with his trembling hands. That pair of clear eyes of his did not carry any nostalgia at all. His tears fell onto the pieces, and as Yi Juetian picked up the pieces, his heart ached to the point that he couldn't breathe. That girl who loved to smile, her smile just now was so sweet, yet at the very end, her smile was one of release. Perhaps it was just like what Yi had said just now, I shouldn't have allowed her to follow me. If not, how could things have turned out like this? How much grievance and pain did I make Yi suffer? Now that Yi is free, who is going to free me? Yi, I only want you to live. I have always believed in you from the start. Yi Juetian hugged the pieces in his embrace, as if he was hugging Yi again, and he could even feel the warmth of Yi's body. Yi, I will bring you out of this place. I shouldn't have brought you here. Just like that, everyone watched as Yi Juetian left. No one stopped him, not even Yi Hua. Yi Hua only instructed Yi Zizi to look after Yi Juetian and not let him do anything foolish. As long as Yi is able to die, Yi Juetian will be mine. Now, it will be my turn to console Yi Juetian and let him walk out of this sorrow. Right now, Yi Hua tightly clenched his fists. This woman is making me feel so uncomfortable. At this moment, Zhou Yang slowly woke up, and he sized up the surroundings with a confused gaze. Noticing that the people in the surroundings seemed to be very heavy, he then secretly looked towards the emperor who was on the stairs, and his expression was incomparably heavy. However, that palace maid from earlier had already disappeared. She must have been executed. In that case, she is definitely going to kill me next. Zhou Yang immediately fainted again. How big of a matter is this? Is there a need to fight to the death? It's not like there is a deep hatred between us. Yi Hua directly disappeared from his seat and did not say anything. His mood was extremely bad right now. Qing Ye could sense Yi Hua's hesitation. Chapter 1161. This is my first time seeing Yi Hua like this. Dong Huang Baiji said concernedly. In the past, Yi would always have a calm look on his face, as if everything was within his grasp. However, this time, Yi had completely miscalculated. Even in such a situation, Yi had chosen to commit suicide. Wasn't this the same as telling Yi Hua, my life is not under your control? The problem is, where did Yi Hua run off to? Qing Ye asked worriedly. He is already a few thousand years old, how can he still go missing? Does he think that I am still a child? Qing Yutong suddenly clapped her hands, I know where brother-in-law went. However, right now, Yi Hua was currently sitting inside the bedroom of Leisure Bar, and the television was currently playing Calabash Brothers Saving Grandpa. Only by watching this would Yi Hua's mood be able to calm down. Every time when Yi Hua was in a bad mood, he would quietly sit down and watch cartoons. Right now, Yi Hua was incomparably serious as he watched the battle. However, his heart was very heavy. Was I really wrong this time? How could this woman be so powerful? She had already proven her innocence, yet it still ended in death in the end. Especially when Yi Hua saw his younger brother desperately hugging onto Yi and his younger brother's shattered body, Yi Hua found it hard to accept such a scene. Wrong. Wrong. This time, I, the Supreme Overlord, am really wrong. This girl, Yi, has really let me see what is wrong. 3 beautiful figures appeared behind Yi Hua. Seeing that Yi Hua was sitting on the sofa and watching Calabash Brothers saving his grandfather, Qin Ye and the others finally felt at ease. This fellow, seems like Qin Yutong understands this brother-in-law quite well, and knows that he definitely ran over here. Although the 3 wives had already found Yi Hua, they didn't disturb Yi Hua from watching the cartoon. They knew that Yi Hua was currently reflecting on himself. It was a pity for Yi and the infatuated Yi Juetian to learn from this matter. On the other side, Yi Juetian carried the fragment and walked out of Voidless Empire. Yi Zizi followed behind him. After leaving Voidless Empire, the temperature started to plummet, and the snow that filled the sky seemed to be silently mourning for Yi. Yi Juetian muttered to himself. Actually, I really want to walk in the snow with you, but in the Imperial Palace, I don't dare to come find you. I'm afraid you'll be in danger. We are finally out now, out of the Imperial Palace, out of Wushu Empire, Yi. I'm sorry. Yi Juetian said with a heavy tone. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. The fragment in his bosom was gradually dissipating, causing Yi Juetian to panic. E. The fragments fell onto the snowy ground. Yi Juetian frantically picked up the fragments, but these fragments were quickly dissipating. Those spirited eyes disappeared from Yi Juetian's eyes. Chapter 1162. Looking at the pool of blood on the ground, Mengli was very worried. With her brows wrinkled, she asked, Meng Yao, this time. Before Mengli could finish, Meng Yao said softly, let me sit alone for a while. Seeing Meng Yao like this, Mengli knew that love tribulations were painful. Mengli didn't try to persuade her and slowly left the room to let Meng Yao calm down. Right now, her thoughts must be very chaotic. Meng Yao wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and slowly stood up, subconsciously touching her pocket. He took out a white cloth and slowly opened it. There was a pink lollipop inside. Meng Yao held it in her mouth as she stared at the sky. You owe me. Give them back to me. Thinking back to the past few months, Meng Yao felt as if someone was tearing her heart apart. Yi Juetian. I trust you so much. But you treat me like this. And Gong Yu. Yi is a stupid woman. But I, Meng Yao, am not stupid. You deliberately made me cause trouble today because you wanted me to die. So it turns out that what you've shown was all hypocrisy. You won't die. How can I dispel the hatred in my heart? Meng Yao put the lollipop in her mouth back into a handkerchief and wrapped it up properly. Everyone said that love tribulations were hard to deal with. It would make people wish they were dead. Yes. Pain, even if I become a god, my heart will still feel pain. Yi Juetian. You're so cruel to me. Mengli. Meng Yao called out softly. Mengli pushed the door open and entered. She stood behind Meng Yao and leaned forward slightly. Meng Yao, are you feeling all right? Bring me the blood sun cleansing flower. Mengli furrowed her brows and asked in puzzlement, Meng Yao, what do you want the blood yang purification flower for? That is. Don't ask any more. I don't want to owe others, but others owe me. You must return it. Meng Yao coldly said. She had wasted the Empress Dowager's medicine, and she didn't have much time left. This was her fault, she would pay for it. But those who bullied me, none of them will have it easy. But the blood sun purifying flower is passed down from generation to generation. I'm afraid. If there's anything, I will bear it myself. Go and get it. All right, calm down, Meng Yao. Meng Li advised in a low voice. She felt that Meng Yao had suffered a lot. Otherwise, why would she have such a reaction? She had even vomited blood after returning. Meng Yao, I don't care what you're going to do, but I still hope that you can rest for a few days. Your current condition isn't very good. Emisham, I know. Meng Yao nodded, before sitting down cross-legged. If she didn't vent her anger, she wouldn't be able to swallow it. Inside Leisure Bar, Yihua had already watched cartoons for the entire morning. After switching off the television, Yihua said lightly, let's go back. During this entire morning, Yihua reflected on his actions. During this period of time, my temper has become a lot more irritable, and my thinking also lacks judgment. Although this matter caused Yihua to suffer a setback, it was also a profound lesson that would allow Yihua to find out his own inadequacies, and from there, improve his own inadequacies, allow himself to become more and more perfect, and not allow his judgment to be affected by some emotions. Qin Ye and Dong Huang Baiji supported Qin Yutong. We are still in the middle of a Cold War, it would be inappropriate for us to be too concerned about Qin Yutong. Qin Yutong was also speechless. He was obviously worried to death, yet he still wanted to save face. Brother-in-law, are you all right? Qin Yutong asked concernedly. It's been a long time since I've seen brother-in-law so dejected, and my heart ached for him. Yihua shook his head, expressing that he was all right. Right now, Donghuang Baiji couldn't bear it anymore. In actuality, she had wanted to talk about this problem since a long time ago. Yihua, do you know that your ideals right now are very bad? When did you start to have the idea that two people are of equal status? Although Yi is just an ordinary person, her bravery is even stronger than those sect masters and sect masters. You are too shallow. Seeing that Donghuang Baiji had already spoken, Qingye also had to express her opinion. What Baiji said is right, Yihua, you are already looking down on others regarding this matter. Thinking back then, do you know who I am? Do you know who Baiji is? Didn't you still have sex with us without saying anything? At that time, did you ever think that we are worthy of you, the Supreme Overlord? Yihua, you really have to properly reflect on yourself. Ever since you became the emperor, you have changed a lot, you are now the same as those emperors on television. After Qingye finished speaking to Donghuang Baiji, she was prepared to be lectured by Yihua. Hearing that, Yihua remained silent for a long time. In the end, he said lightly, let's go back and see how little Tian is doing. After finished speaking, Yihua disappeared from the sofa. Qingye and the others were very puzzled. This act tough King Yi is not going to flip out. He wanted to hurry back and see how his mother-in-law was doing. After such a thing happened, his mother-in-law should be feeling terrible. Yi's death simply made everyone unhappy. Qingye and the others arrived at Lu Jing's palace. Qian Yuqing was by Lu Jing's side, and Daji was serving her. However, Lu Jing's complexion was not very good. It was a little pale, but it was very rosy before. Mother, what happened to you? Qingye hurriedly walked forward and held on to Lu Jing's hand. Lu Jing revealed a gentle smile. It's okay. Mother is fine. Donghuang Baiji looked towards Qian Yuqing. The meaning of her question was very obvious. However, Qian Yuqing's eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Chapter 1163. Yi Zizi said respectfully, Your Honor, he is still fine, it's just that he hasn't come out yet. You can go back and rest. Yihua said with his hands behind his back. All right. This subordinate will take his leave. After saying that, Yi Zizi disappeared. Yihua pushed open the door and entered into the room, and saw that his little brother was currently drinking cup after cup, and a blush had already appeared on his little brother's face. Yihua did not say anything and just sat in front of his brother, then poured himself a cup of wine. The two brothers drank in silence, and neither of them spoke first. Little Tian, Yi is indeed a good girl, just a little stupid. Yihua said faintly. Although I have clarified that I am not a spy, it is still a fact that I have wasted my mother's life-saving medicine. Yi Juetian revealed a bleak smile. Big brother, I just like her stupidity. I've never seen a girl like her before. She's so stupid that it breaks my heart. Perhaps I shouldn't have forced you from the very beginning. Yihua said in a low voice. Just now, Qingye and Donghuang Baiji's words had awakened the main Supreme Overlord. When did I, the Supreme Overlord, become that kind of person? Could it be that my mind has been affected by the riches and honor in front of me, and I feel that only powerful women are worthy of my younger brother? Or, could it be that only powerful women are worthy of marrying into the family? I'm not thinking for my younger brother, I'm thinking for myself. I believe that only the strong are qualified to enter the Yi clan. However, was Qingye a powerful expert back then? She's just a boss, a woman who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. Didn't I like her back then? For her, he had put down his pride a few times. What's the difference between Yi and Qingye from back then? Yi is fine on my own, but it won't work on my little brother. Sometimes, only when something has happened, would one know what is wrong. Right now, Yihua could be considered to have realized that he shouldn't have forcefully imposed his own wishes onto his younger brother. Of course, there was also the children. Back then, when I let them go out, I also carried a bit of selfishness within me. However, the Supreme Overlord's intention was good, it was just that he used the wrong method. Yi Juetian slowly raised his head and looked at his big brother in front of him. He cried out miserably, "Big brother, it's too late to say anything now. Yi is already dead." Yihua patted on his younger brother's shoulder, then picked up the wine pot and poured a cup of wine. "Come. Let's drink till we're drunk." The two brothers drank without restraint. They didn't use any magic to disperse it. They just drank with the bodies of ordinary people. It was very rare for Yihua to get drunk, and it could be said that he had never gotten drunk before. Today, he was accompanying his little brother to get drunk, and he was also letting himself indulge for once. His mother's illness, Wei Chang's disappearance, Qing Su's escape with Dou Fusher, and of course, Yi's death. The two brothers were completely drunk and had begun to let themselves loose. Furthermore, he wasn't doing it in his room, but on the streets. The surrounding people were simply dumbstruck. His Majesty, and His Highness. Which one is the Majesty? How did he get so drunk? The news quickly spread to the palace, and when Qingye and the others heard about it, black lines appeared on their foreheads. Yihua and Yi Juetian are both drunk. What was going on? And you are even peeing on the streets. Do you not want your dignity as an emperor anymore? Qingye and Donghuang Baiji hurriedly left the palace, and Gong Yu followed behind them as well. However, on the street, Xiao Tian, big brother will bring you to the brothel to play. Yihua held on to his little brother's shoulder and said happily. Big brother, I want a dozen. All right, let us brothers fight one-on-one. Yihua said drunkenly, and a drunken smile could be seen on his face. It was very rare for Yihua to be in such a state. The surrounding people were all discussing. His Majesty brought Prince to a brothel. My God! I wonder if applying to be a courtesan queen would be of any use or not. I really want to be rubbed against by the brothers together. However, right when Yihua and Yi Juetian were about to enter, Qingye and the others finally arrived, and they brought Yi Hua and Yi Juetian along as they disappeared from the spot. The girl standing at the entrance of the brothel had been extremely excited just a moment ago, but suddenly, they had disappeared. It was as if they had reached the pinnacle of their lives, only to fall from the sky. That kind of feeling of loss was incomparably painful. In the imperial palace, they appeared again. Yi Hua took a look at Qingye and Donghuang Baiji who were beside him, then immediately hugged them into his embrace and kissed them. "Wives, when did you two arrive?" Qingye and Donghuang Baiji could smell a strong smell of alcohol, and both of them wrinkled their brows. He actually brought his younger brother to that kind of place. Shameless. Meanwhile, Yi Juetian, who was at the side, was being supported by Gong Yu. However, Gong Yu wasn't as lucky as Yi Hua. Why did you only arrive now? Big brother was preparing to bring me to a brothel just now." Along with Yi Juetian's words, the smile on Gong Yu's face gradually disappeared. He is already so drunk, yet his mind is still filled with Yi. Yi is already dead. It is impossible for her to appear again. Yi Hua looked at his younger brother and smiled. "Little Tian, chasing a girl is a skill. Do you know how Big Brother managed to chase after your sister-in-law? Big Brother, please teach your little brother." Yi Juetian cupped his hands and laughed loudly. Yi Hua laughed loudly. "All right." In actuality, the skill lies in a single word. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji immediately felt that something was wrong. That is to do it. This way, they will be able to be obedient, isn't that right, wife? Qingye immediately covered Yi Hua's mouth. This scoundrel, to actually talk nonsense when he is drunk. It is fortunate that we are not in a place with many people, if not, we would have lost face. Donghuang Baiji said to Gong Yu, "Bring little Tian back and take good care of him." I understand, sister-in-law." Gong Yu nodded her head seriously. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji supported Yi Hua back. Meanwhile, Yi Juetian leaned onto Gong Yu's shoulder and said drunkenly, "Just now, Big Brother said. Can I do that to you?" Gong Yu simply wanted to whip Yi Hua's corpse. "Even though this woman is dead, she is still forcefully occupying my man." Stabilizing her good temper, Gong Yu laughed tenderly. "Yay, I am your woman, of course I can accompany you. You are the best, I will love you for my entire life." Yi Juetian said in a low voice, then completely fainted. Gong Yu's face was gloomy as she tightly clenched her fists. Damned lowly slut. Inside Yi Hua's bedroom, something that made Qingye and Donghuang Baiji depressed was currently happening. "I am not going to take off my clothes. I am going to sleep. You guys don't need to care about me." Yi Hua shouted out with a coquettish tone as he used the blanket to cover himself. Qingye and Donghuang Baiji were stupefied. Is this Yi Hua or not? To actually speak with this kind of tone, this is simply ruining our worldview. Darling, be obedient. Let's take off our clothes, take a hot bath, and then go to sleep. Qingye coaxed Yi Hua as if she was coaxing her son. Back then, Qingye also coaxed her son like this. Meanwhile, Yi Hua, who was hiding inside the blanket, let out a whining sound. This caused Qingye and Donghuang Baiji to be astonished. Yi Hua actually turned into a whining monster. End of this chapter. Chapter 1164. Donghuang Baiji placed her hands on her waist and shouted, "Yi Hua! If you are still not obedient, I am going to beat you up." Needless to say, it was really effective. Yi Hua, who was on the bed, immediately became quiet. Qingye opened the blanket and discovered that Yi Hua was actually curled up into a ball, as if he was very afraid. Originally, Qingye and Donghuang Baiji felt that Yi Hua was playing around, but they discovered that Yi Hua was actually trembling. Such a reaction caused the two wives to feel puzzled. "I am so scared," Yi Hua muttered. Hearing Yihua's words, Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi became absent-minded. In their impression, when had Yihua ever been scared? No matter how strong the enemy was, he would always face it calmly and use his strength to crush the enemy. But today, Yihua actually said such words. This made Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi's heart ache. Recently, Yihua had been carrying too many things on his shoulders. The two women sat on the bed and hugged this man who had just let go of his defense. Don't be afraid, we will always be by your side. Qingye said tenderly, and her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Donghuang Baizhi was the same as she lightly caressed Yihua's hair. Yihua muttered, I am scared that I won't be able to save my mother. I just saw her, I don't want to lose her so quickly. We will find a way, we will definitely find a way. Qingye was incomparably sad. Yihua's fear wasn't from his enemies, but from losing his family. No matter how strong Yihua was, he would still try his best to make up for the loss in his life. That kind of loss would make one wish that they were dead, and Yi Juetian was lost today. There is also Wei Chang, that fellow is so strong, yet he disappeared just like that. Don't you know that I am very worried about you? Although Yihua didn't say it, he was actually very worried about Wei Chang. In order to maintain his face as a supreme overlord, he didn't express his worry. Is it easy to be a boss? There is also that Qing Su, I really can't do anything to him. Yihua muttered. This matter was pressing on his chest, and he was completely powerless. This world is so big, where am I supposed to find him? Donghuang Baizhi said tenderly, as if she was comforting her son, Yihua, don't be discouraged, we will slowly overcome this difficulty. And, don't be anxious, have a good sleep. Tomorrow, we will work hard together. However, Yihua who was in her bosom was already letting out a smooth breathing sound. Lowering her head to take a look, this fellow had already fallen asleep. The two of them took a look at each other, then took off Yihua's clothes, wiped his body, and let out a sigh of relief. Let him have a good sleep. Recently, Yihua has been too tired. Qingye said in a low voice, fearing that she would disturb Yihua. Donghuang Baizhi nodded her head, and the two of them quietly exited the bedroom. That night, Yihua had a dream. In the leisure bar, everyone was celebrating the arrival of the new year. Everyone had come. His mother was hugging Ali and the others happily. Wei Chang who went missing came, and he was even carrying a child, and he seemed to be very happy. There was also that damned fatty Qing Su who was bragging to Do Fusher with a silly smile on his face. Even the dead Yi appeared. Everyone was present, and the scene was very warm. Yihua! 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 In the dream, Yihua heard someone calling out to him. Who is it that is calling out to me? Yihua looked to his left and right, but everyone seemed to be in their own world, as if he didn't exist at all. Yihua! 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 The voice seemed to be very urgent, and there was even a tone of fear in it. Along with his body shaking violently, Yihua suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Qian Yuqing who had a frightened expression on her face. So that was just a dream. Rubbing onto his forehead, Yihua asked faintly, Yuqing, what's wrong? Qian Yuqing's eyes were filled with shock, and she said gravely, Yihua, she. Yihua was puzzled. She came back. What? Yihua immediately sat up. How is this possible? Didn't Yi die? How is it possible for her to come back? Could this be a dream as well? At this moment, Qingye and Qing Yutong ran over, and their eyes were filled with shock. Yihua looked at Qingye and asked gravely, Yi came back. Qingye nodded her head, but Qing Yutong said gravely, but Yi, she seems to be different from before. Donghuang Baizhi let out a sigh, then walked over slowly, she came back to settle the debt. Yi Hua tightly wrinkled his brows. Half an hour ago, no. I should be calling her deity Mengyao now. The current Mengyao was no longer that down and out Yi from before. She was dressed in a pure white dress with hundreds of butterflies on it, a multicolored flower brocade draped over her shoulders, and a heavenly phoenix hairpin on her head. This was the real Yi. She was completely different from the Yi who was dressed in a palace-made dress. The current Yi no longer had a smile on her face, and a cold aura was hovering around her body. Mengyao slightly raised her head and looked towards the city wall, as if everything that happened just yesterday. Under the astonished gazes of the surrounding people, Mengyao walked into Wushu Empire. Everything felt so familiar. Mengyao did not anxiously go to the palace. Instead, she came to that street. That day, I was surrounded by a group of children and was being ridiculed, and he was the one who extended a helping hand, but was that really helping hand? It wasn't. Mengyao continued to walk, and the surrounding people were all discussing in low voices. This woman looks so cold and aloof. Who is she? Mengyao came to the tavern that she stayed in before, and it was still the same room. Sitting in this familiar room, Mengyao laughed at herself, laughing at her own stupidity. I have sacrificed so much for this man, but what I got in return was his distrust. Slowly closing her eyes, Mengyao could still feel the pain and bitterness in her heart. She couldn't help but take out a lollipop and put it in her mouth, and her mood became slightly better. After sitting for a while, Yi disappeared from the room and arrived at the entrance of the palace. Looking at the black armored warriors on both sides of the room and the majestic palace entrance, I, who entered the palace for the first time, felt so happy. That was because I was able to see him, but who knew? Mengyao walked towards the entrance of the palace. The black armored warriors on both sides immediately blocked Mengyao and shouted, "Back off." Mengyao couldn't help but think back to that day. When she came to look for him, she was pushed onto the ground by those black armored warriors over and over again. But now, you all can't push me, Mengyao, down. The one who should be pushed down is you all. A terrifying aura exploded out from Mengyao's body, and the 2 rows of black armored warriors all flew out and fell onto the ground. Mengyao didn't even take a look at them and walked towards the entrance of the palace. The 2 huge palace doors automatically opened. After walking into the palace, Mengyao looked at the venue of the wedding ceremony. There was the place where I kneeled down, and there was that heartbroken gaze of his. You didn't die. Just as Mengyao was reminiscing, Yizizi suddenly appeared at the side and asked curiously while sucking on a lollipop. Mengyao lowered her head and looked at Yizizi. I know that this is a person who treats me well, unlike other people. End of this chapter. Qian Yuqing asked in confusion, Mengyao, what do you want to make up for? Yi made a mistake. She wasted the Empress Dowager's medicine. I brought the antidote today. It can cure the Empress Dowager's illness. What? Everyone cried out in surprise. If the Empress Dowager's illness could be cured, that would be great news. The 4 wives were incomparably excited. They didn't expect that Yi would bring the antidote, repaying evil with good. But you owe me. I also want to take it back. Mengyao said in a deep voice. Donghuang Baiji asked gravely, Mengyao, what do you want to take back? I want Gong Yu's life. Mengyao had already made up her mind to kill. She had come here today to save the Empress Dowager and make up for her mistakes. The second was to kill Gong Yu. This woman had harmed him time and time again. If he didn't kill him, he would feel terrible in his heart. Everyone became silent. Gong Yu is his honor's little brother's woman. I want to kill this woman, but this woman is also able to save his honor's mother's life. How could this be resolved? Everyone was unable to make a choice, and even Qingye and the others were unable to make a choice for Yihua. This was a thorny problem. Mengyao, wait a moment, we can't make the decision on this matter. Qingye said gravely. I still have to tell Yihua, but with Yihua's personality. He didn't expect that the incident yesterday would happen again today. Qian Yuqing had already disappeared from where she was, preparing to go and tell Yihua. Qingye and the others also followed after them. Meanwhile, Absolute Heaven's subordinates frowned slightly as they looked at Mengyao. This woman came prepared. Next, it was Qian Yuqing who woke Yihua up. Yihua wore his clothes while feeling puzzled, then walked out of the bedroom. However, the four women didn't tell Yihua that although Mengyao was able to cure his mother's illness, she still wanted Gong Yu's life. In the eyes of the four women, they felt that Mengyao wanted to kill Gong Yu because she was jealous. However, what they didn't know was that if not for Gong Yu adding fuel to the fire, Mengyao wouldn't have appeared at that kind of occasion. Very quickly, Yihua appeared in front of Mengyao. Looking at Yi who was standing in front of him, Yihua was a bit stupefied. Is this really the Yi who died yesterday? However, looking at Yi who was in front of him, Yihua felt a kind of guilt. This was an emotion that Yihua had never felt before. I, the Supreme Overlord, also have a day where I feel guilty. Mengyao didn't want to speak too much nonsense and said lightly, I am able to cure Empress Dowager. Yihua turned his head around and took a look at Dong Huang Baiji. Didn't you say that she came here to settle the score? Are you sure? Yihua asked gravely. His mother's illness was already imminent, and he mustn't delay any longer. If it was possible, he would do anything. Chapter 1166. Zhu Tian smiled and said, Your Honor, it is just a title, there is no need to worry. Let's deal with the current situation first before thinking about other things. Yihua said lightly. Yes. Your Honor. Yihua immediately rushed towards his mother's bedroom. Meanwhile, inside the bedroom, Lu Jing was also incomparably shocked when she saw a Yi who had revived. However, this Yi had a different kind of flavor to her. Lu Jing didn't really like this Yi and felt that the previous Yi was better. Although she was stupid, she was very sincere. Mengyao looked at the Empress Dowager in front of her and said lightly, Empress Dowager, wasting your medicine is my fault. Therefore, as compensation, I will cure your illness, and you will no longer have any worries. At this moment, Yihua walked into the room and stood at the side, not saying anything. What are you? Lu Jing asked puzzledly. Empress Dowager, I am not Yi right now, I am Mengyao right now. Mengyao. Lu Jing mumbled. I still feel that Yi sounds better. Mengyao didn't say anything and stretched out her palm. A bright red flower petal condensed on her palm and Mengyao said lightly, This is the bloody sun cleansing flower, it can cure all poisons in the world. Yihua asked faintly, It is actually a flower, why is it a flower petal? Mengyao explained slowly, There is only one bloody sun cleansing flower, and it has 11 petals. This is the last petal, and there is no second petal in the world. Yihua remained silent and looked towards Zhu Tian who was at the side. Zhu Tian had done some research on this. Zhu Tian nodded his head. I can give it a try. Yi Yuanqing who was standing at the side deeply wrinkled her eyebrows. Is this flower petal really so mystical? I have never heard of it before. Empress Dowager, please keep this flower petal in your mouth. Mengyao said lightly and stretched out the flower petal in her hand. Don't look at how Mengyao seemed to be talking about an ordinary item right now. However, if the news of this bloody sun cleansing flower were to be spread out, everyone would definitely go crazy and fight for it. There were a lot of people whose lives were on the line, and there were even more people who were waiting for the medicine to save their lives. The value of this flower was even higher than the things in Yihua's warehouse. However, the reason why Yi took out the bloody sun cleansing flower was because she wanted to cut off her identity as Yi and not owe anyone anymore. Lu Jing took a look at Yi Hua, and Yi Hua nodded his head. Lu Jing let out a sigh of relief, picked up the flower petal in Meng Yao's hand, and put it in her mouth. A refreshing feeling spread throughout his body in an instant. This refreshing feeling quickly solidified, and his body felt warm as if he was bathing in the sun. If it was in the past, Yi Hua would definitely be the kind of person who cared about his face no matter what. This kind of Yi Hua is the kind of man that I like, someone who dares to take responsibility for his actions and is never hypocritical. Meng Yao said calmly, "There is no need to thank me, this is something that I should be compensating you for. Now, isn't it time for you to compensate me?" After hearing what Meng Yao said, Lu Jing was confused. "Meng Yao, what kind of compensation do you want? Tell me, I will do my best to satisfy you." Meng Yao looked towards Yi Hua. "What do you want me to say?" Yi Hua said gravely, "If you were framed, and the evidence is conclusive, I will allow you to deal with it freely." "All right. Go and call Yi Juetian and Gong Yu over." Yi Hua said coldly. For this Meng Yao to be so confident, it seems like there is someone behind this matter. Gong Yu. Is she that daring? Meng Yao said coldly, "No need, I will personally go and call them over." After finished speaking, Meng Yao disappeared from where she was. Of course, she knew where Yi Juetian's bedroom was. "Yi Hua, what is going on?" Meng Yao went to look for Yi Juetian. Lu Jing asked worriedly. Yi Hua shook his head. "Mother, Meng Yao went to look for Gong Yu and seek justice." "Let us go and take a look, we have to treat this matter seriously." Qingye and the others nodded their heads. "We indeed cannot be careless. I will go as well," Lu Jing said lightly as she stood up. Right now, her body was very stable, unlike in the past where she had a feeling that she was on the verge of falling. Yi Hua brought everyone and disappeared from the room and arrived outside of Yi Juetian's bedroom. At this moment, the door was already pushed open. Seems like Meng Yao had already walked in. Meng Yao had indeed walked in, and she was even looking at the man and woman on the bed. However, Meng Yao never expected that right after Yi died, you would actually be together with this woman. "Yi Juetian. Do you still have me in your heart? Do I, Yi, have no place in your heart? Or could it be that the two of you are celebrating my death?" Yi Juetian seemed to be able to sense that there was someone beside the bed. He closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. End of this chapter. Chapter 1167. Yi Juetian slowly opened his eyes, and a blurry figure appeared in front of him. He furrowed his brows and rubbed his eyes. The blurry figure gradually became clear, and as it became clear, the expression on Yi Juetian's face froze. "This is Yi. Who was this woman? Why did she look so much like Yi?" Yi Juetian did not dare to confirm that Yi did not have this kind of aura. However, this woman's aura was very strong, and even her clothes were very luxurious. Yi had never been like this before. "Who are you?" Yi Juetian asked curiously. Why did this woman run into his room? Moreover, she was standing beside the bed. Could she be Yi's elder or younger sister? In Yi Juetian's heart, Yi was already dead, so how could she have revived? Moreover, Meng Yao and Yi's auras were very different, so Yi Juetian would not think otherwise. Hearing Yi Juetian's words, Meng Yao coldly laughed in her heart. Right now, she was standing in front of him, and he was asking her who she was. At this time, Gong Yu sweetly called out, "Ju Tian." Yi Juetian's gaze focused, and a fiery body hugged him from behind. When he turned his head to look, he immediately cried out in surprise, "Gong Yu, why are you here?" Gong Yu said softly, "You're so annoying. You only know how to bully others. When Meng Yao heard this, she wanted nothing more than to skin this woman alive. However, Gong Yu slowly opened her eyes and was shocked to see someone standing beside her bed. When Gong Yu saw the woman in front of her, Gong Yu's pupils gradually shrunk, and with a shocked expression, she said, You didn't die. Gong Yu, do you want me dead? Meng Yao asked coldly. At this moment, Yi Juetian was dumbfounded. He looked at Meng Yao in a daze. You're Yi. You survived. Yi is already dead. The one standing in front of you is called me. Meng Yao. Gong Yu's soul had already left her body. Her delicate body was trembling, and all she could think about was why she wasn't dead. Why did he come back? Why did she come back? However, Yi Juetian was even more dumbfounded. Where was he? What was he doing? Why is she sleeping together with Gong Yu, and furthermore, she's the kind that isn't wearing any clothes? Is the one in front of me Yi? Why was this happening? Put on your clothes and come out. Meng Yao said coldly. This was already the second time. The first time might have been Gong Yu's scheme, but this time. Was this also part of Gong Yu's plan? Caught red-handed in bed. Yi Juetian. What else do you have to say? I, Meng Yao, must be blind to have fallen for a man like you. Yi Hua and the others stood outside and waited. Seeing Meng Yao walking out with a gloomy face, Yi Hua wrinkled his brows. Little Tian must have been drunk yesterday, right? Could it be just now? Qingye and Dong Huang Baiji were also thinking the same thing. The two brothers were both drunk yesterday. Yi Hua is still fine, but could it be that Yi Juetian is? Not long after, Yi Juetian and Gong Yu walked out. Both of their expressions were not very good. Yi Juetian's mind was still in a daze, while Gong Yu was completely frightened. The smart girl seemed to understand something, and her face turned pale. At this moment, Yi Hua said gravely, Meng Yao, if you have anything to say, just say it. Meng Yao looked at the man she had once loved, and no longer had any lingering feelings for him. She turned her gaze to Gong Yu. When Meng Yao looked at him like that, he became even more uneasy. He felt that Yi had become more imposing today. That kind of killing intent was released without any concealment. This made Gong Yu feel uneasy. At this moment, Yi Juetian asked blankly, Are you really Yi? Everyone did not say anything. For something like this to happen, it might be heaven's will. This means that Yi Juetian and Yi are not fated to be together. Meng Yao said indifferently, It is no longer important whether I am Yi or not. I did not come here today to look for you. You are also not worth me coming here to look for. Yi Juetian was speechless. I only have myself to blame. I can't blame anyone else. Gong Yu, are you going to end your own life, or are you going to let me do it? Meng Yao asked. If not for this woman, I might not have gone to explain myself yesterday, and I might not have been disheartened. If I had stayed in the woodshed the entire time, I might have had a chance to turn things around. However, it was already too late to say anything now. Gong Yu stabilized her state of mind. Right now, I cannot afford to panic. Why do I have to end my own life? Also, who exactly are you? Is it Yi or someone else? Gong Yu was a smart person. I cannot continue being passive. I have to take the initiative to counterattack. Big Brother Emperor is standing at the side, which means that he is currently observing. As long as Yi does not have any evidence, I will be fine. Luckily, all of the evidence is gone. Yi, even if you are able to come back to life, so what? If you want to kill me, Gong Yu, do it in your next life. Meng Yao knew that Gong Yu was cunning. If not, when she was still Yi, she would have been tricked time and time again, and believed this hypocritical woman. I am Yi. However, my real name is Meng Yao. Meng Yao said indifferently. There is nothing to hide, this is my identity. Hearing that Yi admitted her identity, Yi Juetian's face became even paler. I am really unworthy. What face do I have to face Yi and do things that let Yi down? Gong Yu said with a slight smile, so it is Meng Yao, why are you pretending to be the weak Yi? Although Gong Yu's counterattack was very sharp, in actuality, everyone wanted to know the answer to this question. Going through tribulation was just Zhu Tian's guess. Meng Yao did not say why she was going through tribulation. Meng Yao felt that she had never met such a shameless woman who could turn black into white. Gong Yu, when I was in prison. After having sex with him, you even purposely used the copper mirror to let me see it, and after that, you even came over to console me. Gong Yu. You are truly so scheming. Yi is simply being played around by you, and I am even thinking of how to repay you, ha ha ha. While speaking, Meng Yao was laughing at herself. Hearing Meng Yao's laughter, everyone felt a sense of helplessness and sorrow. Yi Juetian once again looked towards Gong Yu, who was hugging onto his leg, seemingly asking if such a thing really happened. Absolute heaven, I didn't do such a thing, I really didn't. I also don't know why Yi would want to fabricate such a thing, I really don't know. Gong Yu's tears flowed down like rain, vividly portraying the feeling of a wronged woman. Gong Yu, who was sobbing, looked towards Meng Yao and said while choking with sobs, Yi, I treated you so well, when you were on the verge of death, I was the one who came to save you, you can't wrongly accuse me like this. That's just because you didn't have an excuse to kill me, that's all. You have always been looking for an opportunity, and yesterday was the best opportunity. You let everyone know that Wushu Empire's emperor forced a palace maid to death. Meng Yao said gravely. Gong Yu's heart sunk, but she still said with sorrow, nonsense, what evidence do you have to prove it? Gong Yu, you finally said this. I don't have any evidence, because you have always been very cautious when doing things, and you have cleared away all evidence. After hearing what Yihua said, Gong Yu let out a sigh of relief, then shouted out towards Yihua, Big brother, I was wronged, I am innocent. No matter what, Gong Yu was still Yi Juetian's fiancé, so how could he kill her just because of a few words from an outsider? It was very sloppy. Yihua asked gravely, Meng Yao, you don't have any evidence. I don't have proof, but Empress Qian Yuqing does, Meng Yao said. Qian Yuqing was stunned. Since when did she have evidence? Everyone looked at Qian Yuqing. Even Gong Yu looked at Qian Yuqing in disbelief. Since when did sister-in-law have her own evidence? Impossible. He did not leave any traces behind. Meng Yao said softly, Empress, please lend me the heart gem from yesterday. Following Meng Yao's words, everyone came to a sudden realization. Meng Yao indeed did not have any evidence, but the spirit gem was meant to deal with situations like this. When Gong Yu heard about the spirit gem, she was dumbfounded as if she had been struck by lightning. Yesterday, Gong Yu had seen the spirit gem, and because he had used it, her identity had been clarified, but today, she used the same method to deal with him. You lowly servant. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have saved you back then. I would have let you die in pain. Qian Yuqing passed the spirit gem into Meng Yao's hands. Meng Yao held on to the spirit gem and walked towards Gong Yu. The grievance on Gong Yu's face completely disappeared, and what replaced it was fear. If Big Brother Emperor were to find out that I was the one manipulating everything behind the scenes, I will definitely die. Yihua looked at Gong Yu, who had a huge change in expression. He already knew the result. I completely didn't expect that Gong Yu was the one manipulating everything behind the scenes. The matter that happened yesterday caused my Wushu Empire to become a laughingstock. Everyone said that I am awesome, yet I forced a palace maid who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken to death. I was actually used as a knife by this Gong Yu. This is simply a humiliation. Everyone looked at Gong Yu, who had a huge change in expression, and found it hard to believe. In everyone's eyes, Gong Yu's image was that of a gentle and virtuous woman. I completely didn't expect that Gong Yu actually wanted to borrow Yi Hua's hand to kill Yi. Yi Juetian looked at Gong Yu, who was beneath his feet, especially that expression of fear. I already know. This woman caused Yi's death. Why does she have to be so cruel? Just how did Yi offend you? You made Yi hate me, you didn't allow me to look for Yi, and you made up such a reason. Now that I think about it, it is truly laughable. If I didn't pay attention to Gong Yu back then, the ending might not have become like this. End of this chapter. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.